Hey everyone, welcome to an NFL video. This one we're going over my favorite plays for the Monday Night Showdown slate, the Browns versus the 49ers. And before we continue, if you could leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Really helps me out, and I really appreciate it. You can also follow me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16. And if you're interested in the spreadsheets I build every single week, links in the description below for my Patreon. And if my voice sounds nasally, I'm sorry. I'm getting over a cold, but it's getting better. So let's get right into it. We will start up top with Odell. And this is a pretty top-heavy slate. So, I mean, there's some good guys like Odell, Chubb, Garoppolo, Mayfield, Kittle, Landry. After that, it kind of takes a nosedive. But we'll go through each guy because we are going to have to play some of these scrubbier guys. So let's start off with Odell. He's 10,400, the most expensive guy in the slate. And, yeah, he pretty much always is on these showdown slates. I think he has been for each showdown slate we've had because the Browns have been on 3 primetime games so far, I believe. But yeah, he's coming off pretty much his worst game of his career, coming off of a 2-reception, 20-yard game. He did have 7 targets, though, but yeah, it was pretty ugly. But I do think he bounces back in primetime. As we all know, the guy loves primetime, and I think they make it a priority to get him the ball more after that down week. And then he's still the obvious wide receiver 1 on this offense, even though it was his buddy Landry who had the big game last week. He's leading the team in target share at 26%, which is 10th in the league for all qualified receivers, and he also owns a 36% market share of the team's air yards, which is also near league high as well. Obviously, these numbers are all great, so I'm not just going to list them all to you. So let's just get into the matchup. The 49ers are allowing the 13th most points per game to receivers this season, which is 37.8 points per game. And individually, though, he will see a lot of Richard Sherman for the majority of this game, which does sound scary, and it's not that great. Sherman plays on the left side of the field 98% of the time, which is where Odell lines up the majority of his time at about 43%. And Sherman has not been too bad this season, only allowing 0.22 fantasy points per route covered, which, if you have no idea what the baseline of that is, he's way above average in that category. So not been too bad, and yeah, really, I think I'm gonna give the advantage to Odell here. He's one of the premier talents in the NFL, which is going to be a tough challenge for Richard Sherman. I personally have no concerns with Odell here, and if presented the opportunity, he should be in for a big game on an offense that seemed to find its identity last week, with Baker finally finding his stride and rhythm, and the Browns offense did really as a whole. They established Nick Chubb, so I do like Odell here, and the Browns are getting a ton of weapons back on offense, which might not sound good for Odell, but actually I think it's going to be maybe better for Odell because it's going to help take some pressure off of him as Callaway, the speedster, is back, and he can also take the top off the defense. I'm not sure how much he's going to play in his first game back off suspension, but it definitely helps, and Baker also gets his guy Higgins back, which they have a great chemistry with each other. So I would feel very uncomfortable fading Odell. I mean, if you don't want to captain him with that price tag, I understand, but I think you pretty much have to play him on the slate because he's a slate breaker. He's a big primetime guy, versus the Jets. It only took one play for him to just break the slate. He had that 89-yard slant, and that's what he's capable of doing. So definitely like Odell, I think you pretty much got to get him in, and he's definitely one of the best contentions for your captain spot heading into Monday night. Then we'll talk about Nick Chubb at 10,200. He comes in at the second most expensive guy in the slate, and honestly, he could be the most expensive guy. I'd still have interest in him, but he's coming off a monster game, unlike Odell versus the Baltimore Ravens, where he had over 160 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns, and showed off that big play potential, just like Odell with his 88-yard touchdown, where he turned on the Jets after he made that cut on that halfback toss. And he actually had the fastest run of any skilled player in the league this season. Nick Chubb's a beast. I mean, the guy's thick, and you might not think he looks that fast, but he's got the burners. He's one of the better running backs in the league. He's one of the safest plays on the slate with his guaranteed usage and workload every single week, as there's no one cutting into his workload besides the very occasional Hilliard, which really doesn't bother me whatsoever. He also sees consistent targets each week, as he has had no fewer than 4 targets each week, which it's huge. I mean, we'll take that all day. Helps boost his floor and his ceiling. But here's the thing, though. So here's the negative thing with Chubb. San Francisco has been downright nasty to opposing running backs this season, only allowing 13.8 points per game to running backs, which is best in the entire league. So yeah, that's a big yikes. But it's still early in the season, so we don't have a big sample size there, and let's just see who they faced. And really, they're not played very good teams so far. I mean, Tampa Bay's got some firepower, but they really don't have a running back. And they've gotten out to leads pretty early in most of these games so far this season, so the numbers may seem a little noisy, and I think they are. I fully trust Chubb in this matchup, and it's not a good matchup, but I think he's going to be fine. The volume is king in DFS, and he's, way more than likely than anybody on this slate to see the most touches, which is what we need in fantasy. So he should be fine. Safest play of this slate, in my opinion, and chances are he gets into the end zone. So do you like Nick Chubb? If you have to pick between him or Odell, I got to say it's tough. I think Nick Chubb's not going to bust off 90-yard touchdowns every week, but I guess Nick Chubb's probably a little safer, but Odell's probably got the highest ceiling in my opinion. Although I know Nick Chubb had a huge game last week, but they're both fantastic plays. I have no problem with either. If you want to captain one or the other, no problems at all with that. So let's talk about Jimmy Garoppolo, 49ers quarterback, the handsome one. He comes in at 9,800 versus the Browns defense. That is middle of the road versus quarterbacks so far this season. And it looks like they will be without their two top corners again, Denzel Ward and Greedy Williams. But the backups have been playing pretty decently. But it's still an obvious downgrade for the defense as a whole because, Ward and Greedy obviously have much more talent. And so it's going to be an upgrade for Jimmy G and company. But do I love Jimmy? Not really, but it is a showdown slate, and typically you want some QB exposure in the flex spot, so I'm not going to be fading them whatsoever. I'm probably going to put them in my lineup. Or I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm gonna like Baker as well, so I'm probably gonna have to put Jimmy in some lineups because it's a showdown slate and they do have the high floors and high ceilings. And he's also a home favorite with an implied total of 25, so he should be fine. I don't think he's in for a huge game or anything, but I don't think he kills you either. I'd say he probably gets about 15 to 20 points, which is, this season he scored 11 versus Tampa Bay. That sucks. 23 versus Cincy. That's pretty good, but he's also facing Cincy. And then 12 versus Pittsburgh. So I don't love it, but he doesn't play. So Baker. He's been pretty disappointing this season in his sophomore campaign, as he has not thrown for more than one touchdown in a game this season, which is not good. And he also has 6 interceptions. But he did show signs of life last week with a good outing versus Baltimore, as he was 20 for 30, 342 yards, and a touchdown, as the offense was looking like we thought it would in the offseason. And good news for Bake as well, as he gets a lot of weapons back this week with Higgins and Callaway, and Sos Jones looks to be another live piece in this offense that emerged last week. And Vegas is really respecting the Niners defense here, only giving the Browns an implied total of 21. I do think they should show out better than that. I think they hit the over there, so I do like the Browns offense. And San Fran has been tough on QBs this season, as they are 8th in the league versus them. But they've also faced Jameis Winston, which he had a terrible game versus them. Maybe that's a little bit of the 49ers defense. But still, face Jameis Winston, Mason Rudolph, and Andy Dalton. I know Baker hasn't been good, but he should be fine. Just like Jimmy G, I don't think Baker will explode, but I like his chances to toss a couple touchdowns here, as they should be a pretty close competitive game. And I do like Baker's weapons a lot more than Jimmy G's, so I think that makes Baker the better play at the slightly lower price. And then the next guy is going to be George Kittle at 9K. He comes at a little bit lower price than some of the other studs on this slate, so I do like the inherent value there. He's not a value, but he's cheaper than a lot of the, Chubb, Odell, which I don't think he has the ceiling of those guys. But still, he's in the late talent. He's uber talented, and he's not blown up yet this season, as he's yet to score. But Cleveland is bottom half in the league when it comes to guarding the tight end position. He's going to be popular, and it's probably someone you want to try to fit in your lineups if possible on this slate. He's got extreme athleticism and big play upside. He's not been terrible this season. He scored 13 points week 1, 8 points week 2, 11 points week 3. Yet to have that blow up game, but I can see him having pretty solid a day versus Cleveland here. And they got blown up by Delaney Walker week 1, which they played horrible week 1, but there's upside for George Kittle there. Jarvis Landry at 7,200, so we kind of have a tier break here with Landry coming in at 1,800 cheaper than Kittle. He got a concussion last week, but it's cleared heading into the week and is coming off a monster game versus Baltimore, which I think will boost his ownership quite a bit. He's seen consistent targets each week with at least 7 per game, which gives him an extremely safe floor and is the possession guy on this offense. Now, things do get a little murky here with the return of Callaway and Higgins, but Landry will still get his, and he draws a pretty good individual matchup in the slot versus Quan Williams, which I will give the advantage to Landry in that one. He's a PPR guy, and this is a PPR scoring format for Draftkings, so I have no issues with Landry. He's yet to get in the end zone yet, though, but if he does, he could probably be in for a pretty big game. Now, is he a contention for me for captain? I guess everybody's a contention for captain, just because you never know what's going to happen on these showdown slates. And he is pretty cheap, and he's got upside, so I actually don't hate Landry. Not one of my favorite captain options, but he's fine. Same with Kittle. And I'm probably not going to be captaining any of the quarterbacks. I really typically don't like to do that. Now, I did like doing that with Russell Wilson the other night, and I did with Patrick Mahomes tonight, but it's an exception. I'm really not too interested in captaining Baker or Garoppolo. Usually like to be a running back 1 or a wide receiver 1, and I really don't want to captain Kittle, but he's a little bit cheaper and he's got upside as well. But I do like Landry. And Matt Breida at 6,800. So this running back situation is an absolute mess. He's the league guy and the most talented of the bunch in my opinion, but we have 4 running backs here, and I really don't want to play the game of guessing which one is going to go nuts. If you're building a ton of lineups, yeah, you can get some exposure to him, but I have a hard time playing one in single entries, especially with Cleveland being 6th against running backs this season. And they've actually played some pretty good running backs. They played Derrick Henry, Le'Veon Bell, Mark Ingram, and Todd Gurley. I mean, that's a pretty loaded running back schedule they've faced, and they've been pretty good versus them this season. So I don't love the running backs here. I mean, the Kyle Shanahan system of running backs tends to score fantasy points, but there's just so many of them, especially with Tevin Coleman coming back. It's just pretty much a mess, and I really don't want to pay $6,800 for really a guessing game. I'm not getting guaranteed bell cow status, so not in love with it, but $6,800, Breeda's got talent. I'm sure he'll be fine, but not someone I'm too in love with. Deebo Samuel comes in at 6,600. Not too excited for Deebo here, but no Ward and Greedy opens up things, obviously, and he played 59% of the snaps this season and has a 16% target share, which is nothing to be too excited about, but it's still second most on the team. I think he's somewhat a safe option, and I don't really have a problem throwing him in. Week 1, he saw 3 targets, got 5 points. Not the best, but week 2, got 20 points, had 7 targets, 5 catches, 86 yards, and a touchdown. That's not too bad. Then week 3, before the bye week, 4 targets, 3 catches, 44 yards, 7 points, 6,600 versus the Browns defense missing a good portion of their secondary. I think he's in play. Don't have any issues with him. Marquise Goodwin, 6,400. So he's pretty much more of the boom or bust option on this offense, but it's not like that boom is very exciting either. He's played the most snaps of any Niner receiver this season, 64% of snaps this season. With the starting corners out, obviously they are in play, the 49ers receivers I should say, but I'm not too excited for any of these guys, but will more than likely, one of them will more than likely hit. I'm not really sure which one it's going to be. You just kind of have to get lucky there. But I try to get exposure to at least one if you don't end up playing any Kittle for some reason, because you're going to want some exposure to the passing game for the 49ers, especially if you're playing Jimmy Garoppolo. So one of these guys makes sense. They're pretty similarly priced, so maybe you split your exposure between the two of them. Antonio Callaway comes in at 6,200. So this is his first game coming off the suspension, so we will have to see how he's integrated into this offense. He's probably going to see a more reserve role, operating as the wide receiver 4 here on this offense. But still, we should see the field some, and I imagine he will be extremely low owned. Not extremely low owned because there's a showdown slate, but lower owned than most of these guys, especially in this price range, because we don't know what we're going to get. It's his first game off of the suspension. Freddie Kitchens said he's a little bit concerned with his endurance, so we will see. He's pretty much a boomer bust play on this slate. If you want to play him, if you're crazy and hope he gets a deep shot, you can do it, but I'm not in love with it at that price tag. If he was cheaper, I wouldn't mind taking a shot, but 6,200, don't love it. I'd rather play, Marquise Goodwin or Deebo Samuel. And then we got to skip a few guys here because we've got some backup quarterbacks. But Tevin Coleman at 5,600. He's got that Q tag, but I'm really not going to mess around with him here. I don't see any reason to. He should play, but this backfield is a mess, and it's really going to be a guessing game. So myself, I won't have any Coleman, and he's been injured anyway, so we're not sure how much he's going to even play. So I really don't like the RB situation for the 49ers. If I have to pick one, it's obviously going to be Breida, but he's also the most expensive. Raheem Mostert, same thing like I said with Coleman. I mean, he's been fine, but that was without Coleman. I mean, he's getting consistent carries. He had 9 week 1, 13 week 2, 12 week 3, but we're adding another running back into the mix, so it just messes things up. I mean, one of these running backs is going to be fine, but I really don't want to play the running back roulette game here, and same with Jeffrey Wilson. 49ers defense, I mean, they're okay. They are the home team here, and I do think the Browns get past their implied point total of 21. But the 49ers defense has been solid to start this season with sacks and turning the ball over, and they are the home team, and they're our favorites. So if you're going to pick one defense, I guess it would make sense to want to play the 49ers. But again, I'm a biased Browns fan, so I think I'd rather play the Browns defense, which has actually been pretty solid this season. Not week 1, they sucked versus the Tennessee Titans, but after that, they've been pretty solid. They've scored 13 points, 9 points, and 10 points. They are on the road, though, which is a downgrade, but they've been pretty solid without key secondary pieces as well. And they have an excellent defensive line. Myles Garrett, Sheldon Richardson, Larry Ogunjobi, Olivier Vernon. It's a pretty good defensive line that can generate pressure. And the 49ers offense really doesn't scare me off too much, so I do think they are in play, but not someone I'm dying to play as well. And then we're really starting to dig the bottom of the barrel after these two kickers, but I do have interest in the kickers, of course, as they always tend to be pretty popular in showdown slates. Both kickers are in play here, but I do prefer Gold as he's the more proven commodity, and he's at home. He's on the home team with a higher point total, so it just makes sense to be more interested in him. And I do have him projected out higher, and they're only about 200 salary difference. So I would rather play Gold, but they're both fine. Seibert has not been too bad. He's a rookie, but he's actually hit all of his kicks so far this season. He's 7 for 7. If the Browns go back to how they played in the first 3 games of the season, they can see a lot of stalled out drives in the the red zone or on the 49ers side of the field, so it could lead to some extra field goals. And he's not been too bad. Outside of week 1, he had 13 points week 2, 7 points week 3, 11 points week 4. The Browns offense continues to play how they did last week. That'll be more scoring opportunities, which means more field goal opportunities and extra points. So don't mind either kicker. If I had to pick one, I'm going to go with Robbie Gould though. Dante Pettis, he comes in at 3,400. He's not a full-time player, but that's baked into this price tag at only 3,400. He's played less than 50% of the snaps each week this season, but he did find the end zone week 3 versus Pittsburgh, but only had 20 yards, which is not that exciting. He's not a slam dunk value play here, but he should do enough at this price tag where you're not completely hating life rostering him. I mean, he's got talent. It's just he's not used so much. So don't hate Dante Pettis. Don't love him either. Ricky Seals-Jones at 2,800. He's coming off a pretty decent week where he had 17 points. He was wide open on a crossing route for a touchdown. Then he got loose down the field where he was wide open and took that 59 yards, showing some of his athleticism. Obviously, with Njoku out, he will see playing time, and he did see more targets than Harris, despite not playing as many snaps as he did. It's kind of tight end roulette for these Browns, and you pretty much have to hope the one you play catches the touchdown, but I really only have interest in playing Ricky Seals-Jones. So Rashard Higgins at 2,400. If you guys are new to the videos, you should know I'm a big Higgins fan. I think he's got talent. He's got a great chemistry with Baker. And he's finally going to be back from the injury, more than likely. So that presents the question, should we play him? That's a good question. If Callaway was still out, I'd say, heck yeah, let's fire him up. But now there's a lot of mouths to feed here, especially because of Callaway being back. Chubb, Odell, Landry will be the first 3 options. Not like Chubb's going to be one of the first 3 options in the passing game, but I mean, just in terms of getting the ball. So that's going to leave Higgins and Callaway as the 4th. But they should see the softest coverage out of all those guys. So, I mean, I think he's fine. Now, we can't be too sure how much Callaway is going to play because Coach Freddie Kitchens did mention he may not have full endurance yet. So I can definitely see Higgins out snapping him and getting more opportunity. And, especially with this chemistry with Baker. Baker loves the guy, and he might be able to pay off for this price tag at only 2,400. So I don't mind taking some shots with Rashard Higgins, but I'm not expecting a huge game out of him as well. And that's going to leave us with Damian Ratley, which is pretty much dead now. I mean, he was a decent value punt option the past few, not past few showdown slates, but, versus the Jets and Rams because Higgins and Callaway were out. And he was fine. I mean, 7 and 5.6 points. But now he's going to be the 5th receiver on this team, so obviously I don't have any interest in Damian Ratley. And really I don't have any interest in any of these guys after that, so it's pretty much, I guess we can talk about Kendrick Bourne. I guess he's fine. Pharaoh Brown's not really interesting, but I mean, he's there. Let's talk about Bourne. He's played 28% of the snaps this season, but is really not a big part of the game plan. He doesn't have to be, though, at this price tag, but he has seen at least 2 targets each week, and, at 200, if he gets 3 points, you're not gonna be too upset. He's going to allow you to load up at other positions. You're probably going to be able to get Chubb, Odell, and Kittle in. So, I guess he's worth a dart throw, but not someone I'm in love with. And then Brown, he's the other tight end for the Browns. He had 1 target last week for 18 yards. You're just hoping for a lucky touchdown on the goal line if you're playing Pharaoh Brown. And really, that's going to be it for this video. I have not made a lineup yet, so I'm not sure what it would look like. So if we try to captain Odell, and then we play Baker, that's going to leave us with 6,200 left. We can throw in Robbie Gould. That's going to leave us with 7K left. Maybe we want to play some... Well, we can try to get let's see if we can get Kittle. That leaves us with 6K left. I'm not sure how this is going to look. We could throw in Deebo Samuel. That leaves us with 5,400 left. That's not bad. You could throw in Mostert and hope he gets lucky, gets into the end zone. Not in love with it. Maybe if we, I don't know, maybe if we throw in Pettis, we get 8,600 left. You can play Jarvis Landry. Now again, I put no thought into this. I have not tried to make any lineups yet, so I'm just playing around. Maybe you want to go with the Browns defense here. Depending on what side you are. I have a ton of Browns offensive players here, so I probably wouldn't want to play the 49ers defense because that wouldn't make too much sense. But this was just made up on the fly. Don't put too much stock into this whatsoever. Let's see if we can get Chubb in. Say we want to do Chubb. Say we want to do a Baker. Say we want to do a Kittle. That's going to probably be darn near impossible unless we absolutely punt one of these positions, which I really would not recommend doing. And I really don't like how this lineup ends up anyway. But yeah, I'm just playing around, so I have no idea what I'm going to do yet in terms of building a line. Well, I mean, I have an idea. I'm not sure what roster construction is going to look like, but I'm probably going to want to spend up in my captain spot and then probably find a value play in one of the flexes and then load up on some of the solid options as well. Anyway, guys, that's going to be it for the video. Remember to leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out. I really appreciate it. You can also follow me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16, and I'll see you guys in the next video.